All right, so until our speaker will join us, we're just settling this together with our organizing team. We're going to hear in the next half an hour a very interesting success story from the African continent. Rwanda is for TYPO3 success story already, and this has started years ago and has accelerated 2.5 years ago in March 2018, when I've had the chance to meet our speaker, Elisabeth, at the CMS Africa Summit. So here is our guest. I had the chance to meet Elisabeth 2.5 years ago, and it was a very fortuitous moment, a moment in which allowed us to start a relationship between her organization, between Elisabeth, and between the Rwandan government and the TYPO3 Association. And out of it, and with the effort of Elisabeth and of her team, TYPO3 is now having a very strong foothold in Rwanda, and I would say a very good starting point for all over Africa. So Elisabeth, the floor is yours. Please tell us your story.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you everyone who has joined this session. As Daniel introduced me, I'm Elisabeth Ujeneza from Rwanda. I work with the Rwanda Information Society Authority. It's an authority under the Ministry of ICT and Innovation. So as you hear, the ministry deals with the policy and strategic level, and RISA, my institution, now deals with the implementation of the ICT agenda. So among which the project that I will talk about during this session. I have a background in software engineering. I've been working as a software developer, application and database developer, and sometimes testing and quality assurance of national critical systems. But also now I have experience as a team lead or technical team lead of a software development team for RISA now for 2 years. I also have experience in project management, specifically software projects, where we are now introducing the agile approach in our project management ways. It's still recent, but we are on track. And also now the TYPO3, which is part of the skills that we are building, not only within the team at RISA, but trying to build also in the country and on the continent. My presentation will cover what have been achieved by my country, Rwanda, the current status of our project with TYPO3, and our future plans to continue with TYPO3. Let me share my screen for a short presentation that I have prepared. Yes, as I introduced to you, my presentation will cover how we adopted TYPO3 in the government of Rwanda, the current status, and our future plans with the CMS. So our journey in the web presence, so we had this pressing need to have a presence online as every government and when an institution is established. I think one of the first things that is pressing for that institution is to establish themselves online. So by establishment online, of course, there are social media channels, there are other ways to be online, but the more professional for our government remains the website. So yeah, all the public institutions and agencies have websites, and of course other social media channels. And during back before we introduced TYPO3 in our online presence, there was no guidance and regulations about which CMS to choose. So when an institution wanted to be established online, they would just follow the recommendation of their vendor. And it will be, of course, in the interest of the vendor to recommend any CMS where they are more conversant, or that they will easily put up a website in a few timeline and provide it. So the institution had no say about which CMS to use, and we had challenges with that approach because all the institutions will have scattered CMS used for their websites, which comes with every specific CMS its own complexity, and it was not easy to have technical support. So when an institution has a website, it will always require the vendor or the consultant that built that website to give technical support. And it was costing, of course, for the government and not very practical. So on content editing, also, it was a challenge because for institution to keep their sites alive and updated, or they have, of course, to update their content, to edit from time to time. And this was also a challenge because there was no central way of training content editors on one CMS that they can master and keep their content up. So the other critical challenge was the compliance with security standards. You can understand that keeping those different CMSs upgraded when a new version of the CMS is out, an extension, a plugin, all of the sorts, it was not easy for everyone to comply every time that there is a security breach, or when there was a release to comply with on the security level. So the way it was addressed at that time, RISA was under Rwanda Development Board, and it was just a department. And of course, the number of staff in charge of the government web was very limited, and they could not all have skills in all the CMS. The majority were in SPIP, in Drupal, in WordPress, and it required a big and very skilled team to be able to support all the various websites in all the various CMSs. So the approach was to, first of all, put clear management in how the websites are hosted. Also, the domain part was an issue. So that was clearly established on the hosting and domain management of all government websites. Then there came the content regulation that is assured by an office of the government spokesperson. So it's the regulator of the content. So every website would have now a same regulation around which content to display, how to display the content, which font, which everything around the content. And now on the technical side, the adoption of TYPO3 as the CMS for the government. Of course, this adoption came after an assessment that was made through all the CMS that were around the government, and TYPO3 was, of course, chosen after that assessment was conducted and successfully voted for TYPO3. So why was TYPO3 adopted? The de facto reason was security. So it was proven to be more secure, and it's multilingual and multi-site feature, because we have 3 languages that we use, English, French, and our local language Kinyarwanda. So you will find sites that needs to be in all versions of languages that we are using. And of course, for embassies and other institutions that represent the country abroad, from sometimes they use also other foreign languages. So TYPO3 was best positioned to cater for this need. And also its clean upgrade path. In the past, before this adoption, some sites would require a total rebuild from scratch when it comes to upgrading it, because the newer versions would not be compatible with all the extensions that were used in the previous versions. So challenges like those were to be addressed by TYPO3. And also we looked at the adoption of TYPO3 around the globe. So in universities, government and enterprises. So it was proven to be a reliable and enterprise CMS that a government can rely on. So on the current status, I will first of all move to our partners. What we are doing is in partnership of our Ministry, of course, of ICT and Innovation, the Office of the Government Spokesperson, as I mentioned, who is in charge of content regulation, the GIZ, which is the German corporation that sponsored financially our project, the TYPO3 Association that we met through our CMS Summit meetup with Daniel a couple of years back. And also we closely collaborate with our local private companies. Currently on this project, we are together with Ausomity Labs and Evolves. So coming back to this current status, we are conducting a revamp of the government web portfolio in terms of harmonizing and standardizing the government websites. As I mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, the CMS were various and everything was catered. So to come to the point where we have harmonized websites, of course, standards were established, but again, the TYPO3 CMS was adopted. Now to bring everyone together require that we start this project that started with building the templates for institutions that have similar mandates, similar content, close services. They will share one template and so on. And also we introduced a multi-tenant architecture. That was not the case because every website, as you may understand, it was in a silos mode. So while upgrading from version, let's say 6.2 to the current version, it will require to do it for every single website. So here we are counting around 120 or even plus websites that we had to conduct that tedious upgrade from lower versions that were vulnerable to most or lately supported versions of the CMS. So the current project now is aiming at building all the website under one structure so that we have a sort of one site and others will be tenants under that website. So we have sort of achieved it because we have a success story to share today. So among all the 100 and plus websites, we have started with the government, which is the gov.rw domain to reach to it. And it will be the sort of the portal to enter the entire government portfolio. So under that gov.rw now comes all the public institutions in categories and per the designed templates that of course, are shared in terms of the project files for developers who understand the extensions, the site structure. And as per the categories, now we have fewer instances to maintain and to update and to upgrade and to secure, which is very practical for our institution in terms of resources that we have. We have a web development team of 3 people, and to maintain and support all the 100 and plus websites was not easy. So now this success story is um, a good thing for the team that we have only to maintain the instances and keep our sites secure. The status with this project is that we have recently launched one category, of course, the .rw, and during the COVID pandemic, we also put under that site a government information page around COVID. And now we have all ministries launched on the same structure. We are now about to launch all districts. Then we follow all embassies. So as you understand, it's very progressing, and we have been monitoring the first launches, and they are very stable, very secured, and very easy to maintain. So that's why actually we are here sharing this story with you today, because it's a case to showcase to the world. From now, what we are building for the government, we also have other plans for the future. You may understand that this project was a big project by being carried on only by the government. So it's RISA and it's RISA's team only dealing with this project. For us to include more TYPO3 in our ecosystem, we need to partner more with the private sector. We need to create more projects that leverage the TYPO3 CMS, so that everyone else, apart from people from the government, will find themselves, they will find interest in the CMS. So we have plans to introduce TYPO3 to other projects beyond just websites. We have the target for having all the government services digitalized by 2024. So it's a very ambitious goal, which require good strategy for us to achieve this. So for that, one of the strategies to achieve this is also to introduce TYPO3 in that area, so that we have TYPO3 that diversified in other projects, among others, those services, local government services digitization. So we have also established a TYPO3 community. It's the first community in Africa. So as we wait for it to grow bigger, so that maybe we have a community per each African country, it's now still a community, an African community. Of course, it was started here in Rwanda, Kigali, but it's open for the entire continent. So we have plans to strengthen this community in Rwanda and beyond. So for this, we are in close collaboration with the TYPO3 Association, and we are very thankful for their support in establishment of this community, but also through this international meetup, we hope to have connections with other people running communities in their countries, in their continents, so that we learn from their experience, we get connected, so that we strengthen our community here as well. So it's on our priority list for us to build a strong and very active community here. And we also have plans, of course, with support of GIZ and other partners, for building capacity in TYPO3. Maybe I didn't touch on this, but TYPO3 is very new in our country and I guess in our continent. So we still struggle to make awareness around TYPO3. We still meet challenges to explain to people all the capabilities and benefits of this good CMS. So we need support so that as we sell the TYPO3 CMS to the developers, we also have a way to support them in gaining skills in TYPO3. So this point is connected to this last one of partnership with private sector and learning institutions. With private sector, we have started with a few companies with whom we worked on this project, but also there are other projects in the pipeline to involve more of the private sectors and academia. For the academia, we want TYPO3 to be among the curriculum of courses that are taught at the university in computer science field. So with this, we think and we hope that the TYPO3 skills will be grown, and also the TYPO3 community will grow bigger, and that TYPO3 projects actually will be beyond the current project that we have on the website to even be implemented on national level projects. So thank you very much, and I'll go through questions from the chat section and try to answer. And then I see your comments thanking us and acknowledging the work done. Thank you. Thank you, Tapiwa Nashe. Thank you, Carlos. Thomas, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan, Nitin. Lucy, hi, thank you. So I see a question from Munyarazi Shumba. How did you manage to convince the government to work with you? And did you face any resistance? Munyarazi, we didn't have to convince the government. So the government itself chose TYPO3. As I explained, the government was facing challenges in maintaining and securing various CMS that were used. So the government itself conducted that survey to identify with which CMS will work better and easy the government work in terms of support. So it was a choice by the government. So we didn't have to struggle in convincing the government. So it was the government's choice, which means the government will remain with this choice as it answers many of the challenges we have. Thank you, Sebastian. Thomas, I didn't see your question. Give me a few seconds, then I go up on the chat section. What was the biggest challenge for you and your team? So for our team, the biggest challenge was before we started this project, because we had to deal with many websites already in TYPO3 after the migration into TYPO3, but they were not on the same structure. So some were running very low version of the CMS, and to upgrade them was very challenging because of few team members working on this project. And that's why we adopted to establish now a new structure where we will have this multi-tenancy architecture. So with this now, the challenge that we have is mostly from our partners. It's in skills gaps. Our team is not yet fully skilled to fly with their own wings, I may say. We still rely on the support from the TYPO3 Association. We still call so often Daniel Timek, our support technician on this project. But The other challenge is that it's only gaps with us. We have gaps also with our hosting service providers. So it's a challenge that we are trying to address with our partnership with the association in terms of the point I said. What we are planning in the future is to keep on building the capacities of our teams, not only our internal teams at RISA, but also teams of our partners, be it the hosting providers. And as I mentioned, we worked with some local private companies. So we also build capacities for those teams, even if they are not our internal teams. So it's one of the ambition that we are pushing forward so that we overcome those challenges. So let me look at the other question. Apart from learning how to use TYPO3, what other activities does your TYPO3 community partake in? So our TYPO3 community is still recently established, and our meetup are in the first place around awareness of the CMS. So we have meetups that are introducing our members to what is TYPO3, what can it do, what are the success stories around the globe of TYPO3 CMS, and also the updates on the government projects, what are opportunities that TYPO3 can bring to them as the community, as the developers. Of course, a community will work better when members see benefits from being in that community. The support channels they can leverage if they embark into a TYPO3 project. So it's still around that, and we haven't had, let's say, a general project to work together on as a community. We are still raising awareness and selling the TYPO3 to people who are interested. And yes, that's where we are. Thank you, Donatien. Thank you, Eve. So someone sent children to their grandma's house. That's sweet. So what are the challenges you face during work with government sectors? So as the team who is implementing this project, we are part of the government. So for us, it's not big challenges, but there are still some. For example, in terms of enforcement, when we establish a common template and say, all ministries, you have to share this template so that it's easy our work of maintaining and securing it. And it eases also the work of your content editors to know, to have a common structure where they will be dealing with their content editing. So some will be like, we are special, we feel special, we want a totally different structure, we want a totally different template. And this enforcement is kind of a challenge. Another slight challenge is on the content availability. With, of course, new structure, people are not very proactive in providing content that fits exactly into that structure, even if they were in the first place part of this project. They were presented the site structure and aware of which content will be needed, but because they consider it a separate project from their own project, they are not very proactive in easing your work in gathering those content. So as for the government itself, because RISA is actually the authority, it has that authority to choose the technical implementation of a project. So RISA now has only to choose to make right decisions and now implement it as we are doing now. So what word of advice can you give me to start this initiative in Zimbabwe and convince the government might be challenging? How best can I go about it? So this is a very good idea to use it for the government. For us, the thing that helped is that we were facing already challenges. So I believe in your country, Zimbabwe, you might be facing challenges as well. So from those challenges you are facing, be it security, be it the update and maintenance, look at the benefits that TYPO3 gives around this compared to other CMS and sell the CMS around those benefits. That's not exactly what we did, but that's what will actually be most convenient to show how it's going to solve the current challenges for the government and for whoever is in charge of those sites maintenance. You can also, of course, include our example as Rwanda to showcase that we did the same and yes, share the success story of where we are as a fellow country, a fellow African country. Thank you, Abdul Hakim. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Munyarati. Is there any question that I might have missed? Please, I can answer to that. Thomas asked, do you think there is a demand for TYPO3 outside the government scope in Rwanda? And how could we support in the... Yes. I think the demand is there, but as I said earlier, people are not aware of the benefits and capabilities of TYPO3. So I think once we advocate better for TYPO3 outside the government who already knows, but through this community, this is what we are trying to do, then people will realize that, yes, plenty of other projects can be implemented with TYPO3, and also because the demand in terms of digitization is very huge and pressing because we have government targets to reach. So this could be actually well adopted, but it needs awareness and advocacy of the TYPO3 benefits and capabilities. Olivier, thank you. Of course, we meet in 2021 and we very much appreciate your support. Thank you, Eve, for your support as well. Yes, Daniel, yes. Yes, we appreciate that you are ready to support. I see Eve's comment that is very touching. So yes, here in Rwanda, we fell in love with TYPO3 because of your support, Daniel, Timek, Alina, and the other people from the TYPO3 Association, and of course, GIZ's support. And thanks a lot.